Welcome to this deep dive, everyone. We're exploring a really interesting story today, one you shared called Raja Prajasinpet Prichasai Bed.
Which translates to Raja and Moyna, where does the wait end?
Exactly. And right away, we meet King Raja, who's, well, he's incredibly upset because his Moyna, that's a Moyna bird, right, has gone missing.
Yes, Amina. And the king's distress is palpable from the very beginning. It's quite striking.
It really is. What grabs you is his conviction. He believes this bird is loyal, deeply loyal.
But his ministers, they're not so sure. They kind of doubt that a wild bird could form that sort of attachment. A real clash of perspectives there.
Absolutely. It sets up this core tension right at the start. You have the king's personal, emotional connection.
Versus a more, let's say, conventional view of animals held by his advisors. And that difference really drives the plot forward.
It definitely does. And it's not just like a passing sadness for the king. The story makes it clear his actual health starts to suffer.
Which is a big deal. The ruler's well-being declining over a missing bird. That's significant.
It forces the kingdom into action. A huge kingdom-wide search gets launched.
But think about the logistics of that. How do you find one specific Moyna bird? Most people wouldn't even know which Moyna to look for.
Right. It highlights the sort of desperation, maybe.
I think so. It seems the effort was widespread, but maybe not very focused. The text says any Moyna found was just brought to the palace.
Yeah, like they were just casting a wide net, hoping for the best. It shows how much they wanted to ease the king's pain.
Even if the method was a bit, well, scattershot, the priority was clearly the king's state of mind.
And the king himself, his words are just heartbreaking. He actually says, I don't want to live. I want my Moyna.
Wow. That's intense. Such despair over a bird really tells you something about their bond.
It's arresting, isn't it? But understandable, perhaps, that this starts causing some unease in the kingdom.
Mm-hmm. The stability of the kingdom is tied to the king's well-being, and his well-being is tied to this one bird. It creates ripples.
Concerns, definitely.
Yeah.
Which leads to the next step, a council.
Right. They call in other regional kings, hoping for, what, advice? A solution?
Presumably.
Yeah.
But the reactions from these other kings are all over the place. It's fascinating.
Yes, some are quite dismissive, aren't they? Calling Moyna a mere Moyna, basically minimizing the whole thing.
Exactly, like what's the big deal? Others suggest simple fixes, like just get another Moyna.
Very practical, perhaps, but probably not very helpful to the grieving king.
Probably not. And we also hear that some privately thought the king's reaction was, the term used as a contestive.
Excessive, over the top. So there's judgment there, too. A feeling that he's maybe losing perspective.
Right. And then, layered on top of that, you get these more philosophical arguments.
Ah, yes, the reflections on life.
Some kings start talking about how life is fleeting, questioning if it's wise to feel such deep sorrow over any single creature, given that everything passes.
That really adds another dimension. It moves beyond just the king and his bird into these bigger questions about attachment loss, the nature of existence.
Just different ways of looking at grief, really.
Definitely. They're offering these philosophical frameworks for coping, maybe based on their own beliefs about impermanence.
And surprisingly, perhaps, this seems to strike a chord with King Raja. He doesn't just dismiss it.
No, the text says he really contemplates what they've said. He thinks deeply about it.
And this leads him to a kind of breakthrough, a realization. He says something like, that's where the problem lies, exactly there.
What does he mean by that?
He figures out, or maybe articulates, this idea that the more you expect from this world, this transient world,
The more you set yourself up for suffering.
precisely. It's this moment of clarity born from his own intense pain. Quite profound, really.
It shows a real capacity for reflection, doesn't it? To find that kind of universal insight amidst his personal grief, a potential turning point.
You'd think so. But then, just as he has this realization, something else happens. Something bizarre.
Oh, what's that?
A voice.
Ah,
Out of nowhere, apparently from outside.
a voice. Whose voice?
Unidentified.
Mm.
It just speaks, and it says something very direct, addressing his realization.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What does it say?
It says, since you have understood, all your sorrows are gone. Now you should have no more sorrow.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredibly specific and perfectly timed with his insight.
Right. And then, poof, the voice is gone. Just vanishes after delivering that line.
And the king's reaction.
Utterly stunned. The text uses a bunny's completely taken aback, floored.
I can imagine. It sounds almost supernatural, or at least deeply mysterious. The universe validating his thought.
Perhaps. But here's the twist. You'd think, okay, he understood, the voice confirmed it, maybe he feels better now. But no. He immediately becomes obsessed with finding the speaker.
Ah, not with the message, but with the messenger.
Exactly. He demands to know who spoke.
Hmm.
And he gets this conviction, suddenly, that it was a boy. And this boy must know where Moyna is.
So he snaps right back to his original fixation on the bird, even after the realization and the voice.
It seems so.
Yeah.
His distress actually escalates again. He gets really agitated, almost frantic, insisting, nothing else matters. I want that boy.
That's fascinating. It really highlights how powerful that emotional bond, that attachment still is. The intellectual understanding didn't just erase the feeling.
Not at all. It suggests understanding and emotional healing aren't always the same thing, or don't happen at the same time.
So did they find the boy?
Well, the king orders another search, this time for the boy. But nope,
No boy.
no one matching the description, or no boy who admitted speaking to the king was ever found. The search comes up empty.
Leaving another mystery wide open. Was the voice even real, or maybe?
Maybe some kind of projection, an auditory hallucination triggered by his intense state.
It's possible. The ambiguity is really strong there, isn't it?
It really is. So, wrapping up this deep dive into Raja Matogan, we've seen this incredibly deep bond between a king and a bird.
The kingdom thrown into turmoil because of it, these clashing views from other rulers.
That moment of profound realization about suffering and expectation.
Followed immediately by that mysterious voice and its strange message.
And ending with the king's renewed, maybe even intensified, obsession. This time focused on finding that elusive boy. An unresolved search.
Yeah, it leaves us, and you, the listener, with quite a few unanswered questions. What actually happened to Moyna in the end?
But we never find out. And who was that boy, if he was real? Why that specific message at that exact moment?
And what are we to make of the king's journey? He has this insight, but does it ultimately change his grief, his longing?
It raises so many thoughts. And maybe one final thing to mull over. Could that boy, that voice, represent something internal?
Like the king's own subconscious wisdom breaking through. A moment of clarity that felt external.
Maybe. What does the story overall tell us about how we handle attachment, how we process loss, and how understanding sometimes arrives in the most unexpected ways?
It's definitely a narrative that sticks with you. Lots to reflect on there about our own experiences with these themes.
Indeed. Thanks for exploring it with us.